welcome to episode 4 of the Jacked podcast, the official podcast of the SSBL. My name is Jay Watt, alongside Fisac. We're here at episode 4. We just finished week 4 of the SSBL, and we have had quite the week, Fisac, here in the SSBL, and obviously, and we'll get to it as our second segment. Trades have been going crazy, probably the last 48, 72 hours or so.
And it's not like a trade window open. It's just that all of the expansion teams are able to trade again. And then this inevitably happens where once a couple of trades go through, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's right, we can make trades. And so it just causes a chain reaction where everybody starts making trades. And I do want to make a note. You said the end of week 4. As this uploads, we actually are currently in the throes of the end of week 4, as Super Saturday is going on. Chicken Sandwich will be on the call. As of this, probably will release depending on when you get this out, because he's supposed to be going live at 2 p.m. Central today. So depending on when this comes out, either people will have to watch this after. Yeah, it'll maybe come up during, so people will have to watch it afterwards. So I guess when they watch it, it'll be the end. But I always forget those Super Saturdays. They just come out of nowhere.
They do come out of nowhere, but they obviously, for next episode, episode 5, our 5th episode of the brand new podcast here for the SSBL, we'll have the Super Saturday addition to it. So looking forward to that. But obviously, we've had a lot of, things are really heating up here in the SSBL, and we kind of, we'll start things off with our game recaps. And the Cyclones, they put a little, as you say here, they silenced the Skulls with a 3-1 victory. Skulls have, as we've talked about, have had these troubles of just getting runners to touch home. That they leave runners on, they get base hits, but they can't score runs. What's your thoughts on this game? Is it 3-1 contest in the Cyclones' favor?
I mean, a much-needed win for the Cyclones, the only win the Cyclones have had this season now, and it was pitching by committee in terms of Aru going 5 innings, 2 hits, and earned run, and then no other earned runs given up between Sims and McDonaldson as well, getting the save. So I think for the Skulls, this was a huge game to win, especially having that number. This was rather the 3rd slot, because I believe they also played another game this week. Yeah, so this was the 3rd slot as opposed to their number 4 starter. But getting that against the Skulls team, that, I mean, this is going to be a tough podcast for you, because the tone entering episode 3 and the tone episode 4, we obviously have seen what has happened to the Skulls this week. And although we don't know what the end result, I mean, by all means, Skulls could go 2-2 through week 4, but the issue is that they couldn't afford to go 2-2. Y'all needed to have a 3-1 or a 4-0 week to get back on track, and this was just pretty. Was this the hardest loss for you this week in terms of between this and the ball players?
I would say, yeah. So with this was the Monday stream. I tuned in as soon as it popped up as Cyclones win, and I closed the stream. So I joined in, saw that it was a Cyclones win, and I left for a little bit and came back and watched a bit of the rest of the stream, specifically the Unicorns Wildcats game. That, yes, it's been a tough week for the Skulls. We'll see if they go 2-2. But yes, absolutely big win for the Cyclones, their first win of the season again. And it's only their 4th game as well, so they're behind in terms of some of these other teams who are approaching. Skulls will have their 8th game by the end of this. While this podcast is going live, they're probably playing their 8th game of the season. So halfway through for some, and some are only a quarter of the way. So that's game number 1. Then we have Mythic earning their first victory as an expansion team. They're beating the other team who has their first win in the Sparrows. This one, I thought the Sparrows were going to come out and get their second win of the season. Mythic pull it out, and not just pull it out. They have someone who, from a stat standpoint, should not have done what he did, if you look at his attributes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of 2 games this week where the team that won it didn't deserve to win. We'll talk about that. I mean, the Sparrows doubly out hit the Mythic 12-6. The Mythic started out hot with that 3-0 first inning, and then the Sparrows put up a 4-burger in the fourth. We ended up having to go to extras in order to settle it. In terms of the player that you're talking about, are you talking about Lucian Miles, who was he the one who nearly had a cycle? No, he had 2 home runs. There was another game that there was a cycle watch.
This guy is a 55 power and 11 contact. That's the problem here.
And both were like dead center, if I remember correctly, or at least one of them was to dead center.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this was some expansion on expansion crime. You hate to see it, but in the Mythic, they're a team, and we'll talk about them in later on in the podcast in terms of how that win affects their goals of tanking. But it is cool to see another team get their win for the expansion sides, and of course the way that we have both with divisional play or conference play rather, where this was the only time that these two teams are going to meet, but we're still waiting to see the Express and Liberty meet up. So there's no way that the Express and Liberty between those two teams that one of them will end up that both of them will end up winless, because we know for a fact that one of them has to get a win, as well as now that we're starting getting into interdivision interconference rather, these expansion sides are going to be playing each other as well. They'll each play each other, I believe. I believe they'll both play Express and Liberty for the Mythic and vice versa. So it's always nice to see, as we talked about in the last podcast, one of the fun things about the league is seeing the newer teams get wins. And, this one was a banger. It was a great one. I believe I casted day one. I think I did. I'm pretty sure that I casted day one. Yeah, I'll be honest, the days blur together. But this one was a banger to cast, and all the games this day were a banger to cast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Which obviously brings us to our game of the night for day one, presented by Turtle Beach. Unicorns Wildcats version 2, the second battle of the season. Unicorns getting the first victory, and then they get the second one. Unicorns just outclass the Wildcats team. The Wildcats, nothing to discredit them. It's just this Unicorns team is a tough one. I mean, the 3-2 loss for the Wildcats. What do you do?
I mean, it's accolades to the Wildcats. They made this one a whole lot closer, and to be honest, at some points it looked like the Wildcats were going to split the season series with how they played. I think for the Wildcats, they've only played 6 games so far this season, but their only 2 losses are to the Unicorns. And so where we sit now, each team has played 6 games between the Unicorns and the Wildcats. Unicorns are at 5-1, Wildcats are at 4-2. And I said that I thought that this division title was going to come down to who won their division or their conference matchups, and I'd still stand by that, because they won't play each other again until either a play-in game or rather not playing game, but a conference decider game, or in the actual conference playoffs. And so I'm really excited to see how this is going to pan out. When we talk about the trades, obviously the Angels are not as much of a walkover now as they were, but I mean, I'm still thinking that these teams should go 4-0 against the Mythic and Angels as well. So this and again, this one went to extras too. So I cannot wait to watch these teams face off, and hopefully we either get that conference title playing game, or we get them playing each other in the conference finals.
The conference finals, or even conference, I think that's it.
It would be divisional if the Wildcats were able to secure the 4. If they were the top wild, if one of these teams, if the Unicorns or Wildcats were the top wild card, they would play each other in the next round. Because I fully envision, and I think you're agreeing with me right now, that we anticipate whoever wins the Galaxy is the number 1. Whoever is second in the Galaxy is probably the number 4. With the way it works out. It could still very much shake out differently, but especially now that they played each other, I don't think they're going to be taking wins from each other.
No, absolutely. Which we move on to the Retrievers escaping the Liberty. This one I tuned in for a brief moment, and I'm like, dang, Retrievers are getting their tail whipped, and Retrievers escaped as you have it written here with this victory. To be honest, this should not have been a victory for the Retrievers. They got extremely lucky with this 4-3 win.
And we're not talking about the Retrievers today in overrated, underrated, or panic and chill, just because we've kind of been beating that over the head a little bit. I'm very concerned about this Retrievers team. It wasn't just that the Liberty out hit the Retrievers; they more than double out hit the Retrievers. And props to the Retrievers defense as well as Retrievers pitching for recovering, for allowing, let's see, there were 14 hits. How many walks were there? There was only one walk, but there was 15 base runners for the Liberty. Only 3 of them scored. That takes a lot of gumption to prevent that from happening. But at the same time, I mean, you look at their records so far, their resume, a 3-5 loss to the Walkers, 14-4 win over the Moonshots, need to get that win, but then 3-2 escapes over the Express and the Liberty. I think that Express win was much more of a win than this was. Actually, this was 4-3, not 3-2.
Still a one run escape though. That's the thing. That those are
Yeah,
1-run escapes against 2 expansion teams, both looking for their first win. So I'm with you. This is it's a scary sight. You know, the Retrievers' next game, it looks like, will be against the
they've got
Wildcats. Will be
they've
against the
got
Wildcats.
I mean, go beyond that though. They've got Wildcats, Overdrafts, Rom Fielders, Gauchos as their next 4. Like
Fantastic.
I don't think it's unfair to say that like you could potentially see them going 0-4 through that stint. I don't think they will. I think they'll probably end up going 2-2 or 3-1. But I mean, those are the you look at their start, and it's not as comfortable as a start as you would like to see heading into those really really difficult matchups. But this will be the test of their mettle. This is just like how we knew the Gauchos were good, but we needed to see them play more games to solidify that. It's the same thing with the Retrievers now, where we think that they're supposed to be good. We think that they're supposed to be a playoff team and one of the better playoff teams. We'll see that in these next 4 games.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to be 3-1, but only have a +10 again, and 2 of those games were against expansion teams where you should be at least winning by 5+, maybe even more. You know, it's similar to that of a Moonshots. They should be, you know, how they faced off against the Moonshots, 14-4 +10. They should have done that to both Express and Liberty. So bit worrisome for the Retrievers, but we'll see how this next 4 pans out for them. And that would bring to you a year in the making. You finally beat the Vikings. It's been forever. It's the first win against the Vikings since season 6, week 6, day 2. Nearly a full 365 days. You had lost 6 straight. Your record versus the Vikings is 3-9, 3-5 in the regular season. How are you feeling after your first victory in a year against not just a team that has had your number, but a team that's, you know, also fighting for that top spot over in their division?
Yeah, and to be fair, it was against the Vikings 4 with Chestnut, but Tammy John came in, and Tammy John was actually the one that got the loss. I mean, my record versus the Vikings are 3-9. Which, when you take away the postseason, is 3-5 now, which is, you know, only 1 game off of 500 in terms of if one result is different. They've really just had my number in the postseason without a doubt. But I mean, yeah, in 1 year, not getting a win over the Vikings. I'm so glad they're out of my division, but also they're out of my division, and now I actually get the win against them at
Right.
Shaka, nonetheless, as well. You know, this is a squad that definitely is a lot better than I think their record shows. And that 0-3 start, I know people were probably looking at that 0-3 start and maybe thinking sort of like with you with the Skulls, where it's like, should they be selling here? But I know this roster. I know what this roster can accomplish, and I knew that if we just stuck it through, that we were going to be able to get through that starting spell. And you know, it's not the path's not easy for us going forward, but also like that, this is huge win over the Vikings. So feeling really good about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it puts you in a really good spot in the division, with a big win over the Vikings there, which moves us to a bounce back win for the Wildcats. Wildcats getting a 6-4 victory over the Cyclones, who had just, defeated the Skulls. They then fall to 1-3 on the season. A good bounce back win though for the Wildcats at home in Gata.
Yeah, and again, a must-get win. The Cyclones out-hit the Wildcats 11-9. Sucks if you're the Cyclones. Heading into this week, we talked about how the Epic Novas, we felt like all these teams were pretty close. Now that the Skulls have basically bowed out of that competition, the Cyclones, I mean, if they get that win there against a Wildcat squad, they are now 2-2. And as well as they still had like 2 games to play as well to catch up with the ball players. So like if they had won this and then won their next 2, they'd be sitting at 4-2 and very much in contention with the Novas. So this one really, really sucks to feel, especially because they did take the lead. They are not the lead, but they did get the tie at 4-4, and then the Wildcats responded in the bottom of the inning. The Cyclones definitely are not out of it, and like I know like the Dragons play them in interconference play, and that's going to be a good game, especially because that's Kyle Edwards on the mound for the Cyclones as well. So tough one for them, for the Wildcats. Like we were saying, getting back to what they do know how to do. They only lose to the Unicorns, so we'll see if that holds true.
Yeah, we'll see. And it brings us to another Novas matchup. Ball players pushing the Skulls to a 1-5 record. Ball players finally getting a victory over the Skulls. I think it's been, I think season 6 was the last time they actually got a victory over the Skulls.
Their own Vikings Dragons battle.
Very similar battle there. So ball players getting a much needed win. Skulls struggling once again with a 6-2 loss here at home again. Another home loss for the Skulls of Rock, pushing them to 1-5.
My question for you, was it the Cyclones game or was it this game that made you realize that you needed to sell?
This one. So with this one, because I knew I had the ball player's number, I also this was the one where I mean, it's kind of like a toss-up. Cyclones, I looked at, I guess I underestimated Aru, their pitcher on the Cyclones, against who was against Sir Alex Einstein, I believe, who started that one. So I honestly thought that I had the better pitching matchup there. But then with the ball players, Bam Vam Dam Ham, whatever, how you RV
Bam Bam Dam Ham?
Yeah, so
Bam Bam Dam Ham.
So he's already played the ball players once. I had a little bit of, all right, this is going to be a low scoring game. I will say that it could have been different if Paige was a closing pitcher. I will say that there were some runners on, even though they weren't her runners. There were some runners on. She did give up some hits as an RP instead of a CP. I'm just going to throw that out there. But it's fine.
I mean, I will say this, which is what I'll say to all managers, which is that things slip through the cracks. So always ensure that if you don't see that check mark next to it, hold us accountable. And we'll do, from League Office perspective, we'll do a better job of putting out the game file or the latest team packs. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now and put the latest team pack. That way, we're all keeping track. Yeah, that definitely should have been made for you. But also at the same time, it's even more of an excuse for everybody to understand that they need to make sure that always be checking, because we're not perfect. This isn't automated. So always check to make sure that those changes are through, and we will not take it personally. And
but no, that's, I kind of expected a loss, but it is also one that I could definitely see a win, just due to, like, similar to you and the Vikings, probably didn't expect your team to truly beat the Vikings with your history.
No.
So I expected a win due to history, due to overall, roster structure. I would definitely say that it seems more in ball players' favor. Which moves us to the Stingers winning at a very important game over the Sparrows, and they stay close to basically at the top, with the ball players having one or two more wins. Two more wins. So 5-1 ball players, 3-1 Stingers now, and the Stingers, have either already won or they already lost, as this is going live on Saturday against the Bombers. So this was as you mentioned, very big win for the Stingers to stay alive in this division.
Absolutely, especially with the tear that the ball players went out to start with. And in fact, I think, to be honest, this win is important for the Stingers just to reinforce to you and to the Cyclones that if they want to compete for the Epic Novas too, or even for the Stingers, that's just saying for the Stingers, like if they were to be number one in this division as well, you're not competing against the ball players. So it's basically saying to Skulls and Cyclones, hey, there are two dogs here. Do you really want to go toe to toe with us? And as of right now, the Skulls have backed down. The Cyclones are still staying in with what they have. But this was just an important win to get for the Stingers. Not much to say really on either side aside from that. It's just a necessary game to win for the Stingers, and they got the job done. Can't really discount them for anything.
No, absolutely. And then we move on to the Vikings rebounding with a win over the Wrong Fielders, giving them the Wrong Fielders their second loss in a row after starting 4-0. This puts the Wrong Fielders in such a tough spot, as you know, you're just now one game back of the Wrong Fielders, who are currently the fifth seed, which also puts you very close to that. If you're thinking about it, very close to like you're in the 5-6 hunt right now. So the Wrong Fielders loss definitely helped you. But the Wrong Fielders are on a downward spiral, and they have a double header today as this is going live. They could be going 2-0. It could be going 1-1 or 0-2, which will make things a lot worse. Thoughts on this game and how the Wrong Fielders are kind of spiraling out of control here?
Uh, say this one makes I think we made the joke and we now have that command where it's playoff problems, where it's have you been struggling with making the postseason? Talk to your topic about transferring to the heroic conference today, as like the joke of like the epic is so competitive, the heroic isn't competitive. But to be honest, I had discounted the Vikings in terms of legitimately competing for a postseason slot because of I thought that the sins of the organization outside of Tammy John as reliever, the rest of that relief pen, as well as that entire lineup in general, was just not as strong. However, this now makes it much more interesting. Again, I think the walkers are going to fade away, but you now have. I think the retrievers. I think the retrievers are pretty much set to be getting in as a wild card slot, and potentially even if they have a good week, being able to compete for the Icons division title. But if you take that away, you now have the Ron Fielders, Vikings, and Dragons all vying for two spots. Which I think this is what's really cool about having 24 teams and 12 playoff spots is that in the past, right, we've had some 6 and 8 teams try and like sneak in there as like
Yeah,
the
5-9.
yeah, but now with 12 teams, again, like in this case, the Express, Liberty, and Moonshots are all taking the case of like bad. Walkers, let's be honest, are not necessarily going to be there. So and the same with the Knights. So between the Vikings, Retrievers, and Dragons, like this is a huge battle between those three to figure out who's going to get in. And this win, showcases that the Vikings are not here just to get walked over.
No, absolutely. And th- this Viking squad is probably going to be one that we're going to be kicking ourselves once the postseason comes, because I mean they're just, I mean, they're the reigning heroic conference champions. You know, you never know what I mean, obviously with the addition of Tammy John and her actually appearing out of the bullpen, like, and RNG being in Vikings' favor there. Obviously she gets the loss to you guys, but the fact that she's coming out of the pen is a good sign if you're a Vikings fan, because that's who you want to come out in those situations. Gauchos, excuse me,
Yeah, about to say.
Skull shocked the High Rollers. This shocked me, to be honest. With how the High Rollers have been, with their little skid, I kind of expected this one to be a little bit closer than it was. Obviously, the biggest win for the Skulls this season, and just the second win. And this is where the tipping point of, all right, I need to sell at least a few players. I don't need to go complete and like just everybody gone. But this is where it's like, all right, Buzz, you're gone. Carol Henry, you're gone. And we'll get into those when we talk into the trade recaps. But good win for the Skulls. High Rollers, they're on. They're not looking good right now. They're struggling.
Yeah, and to be fair to the high rollers, like it's not as if they're losing to the bottom barrel, lost 8-3 to the ball players, 1-0 to the Serpents, but then they do lose to the bottom of the barrel, right? So like those first two losses, I think you can account for. Tough schedule. Ball players have only one loss this season, top of the Novas. Serpents, they look resurgent. They're currently the top of their division right now, but then this loss, as well as the severity of loss, as well as like this Flossin was in a bit too long, but Tipsy Reynolds did no favors whatsoever for this, as well as they've now lost Liv Polbean and Grin Campbell is the call up. So Grin Campbell is going to be in for the High Rollers for 4 weeks. So this is, I think the first two losses, you're like, this is pretty normal, but this loss to y'all Skulls, like, that is not great, man. That is not great at all.
No, not at all. And it's unfortunate to see, obviously, the reigning champion High Rollers start to struggle here, winning their first 2 and now 3 in a row here. Definitely not a not a good way to I guess this is a High Rollers team where I expected kind of, even though they are getting older and older and older, to still somewhat dominate this season. They had a walk-off win against the Bombers, and then what was their second win? Pulling that up. Second win, 3-0 Mythic. That should be a win. That's a given win. So they've, against ball players, great team, they lose 3-8. Serpents, another great team, lose 1-0. Skulls, another one of those like kind of not in the same tier as Mythic, but still one of the bottom barrel, like you're saying. That should also be a win. They now face the Vikings, Wildcats, and Bombers in their next 3. It could be a 6-game skid. Who knows? We'll have to see how that plays out. Which brings us to one of my favorite games this week. One of the games I was looking forward to the most. There's a lot of hype around this team. The Overdrafts facing the Gauchos. Gauchos haven't played in probably since season 7, it feels like, with their long hiatus. But the Gauchos pulling it off and just surviving against this Overdraft squad who didn't go down without a fight. 6-5 win. It was 4-4. Once the Gauchos bounced back and made it a 5-4 game, their pitching squad just kind of took over and made that kind of out of reach.
Yeah, and the thing of this one is we were expecting a pitcher's duel with it, and I mean, Bonnatello gave up 6 earned runs in 2.2. Hattie May kind of leaked them over the course of the 5 innings that she had with 4 earned runs there. And then the Overdrafts looked like they were potentially coming back. They got the 1 run over Lily Pad, had some chances. I mean, this one measured up to, and we'll talk about later on in the overrated, underrated about the game of the night presented by Turtle Beach, as well as the blowout games and how they've measured up in terms of expectations. But this one kind of fit the bill with what we've seen since week 2 in terms of the game of the nights, where game of the nights have been absolute bangers. So if you're not watching the SSBL game of the nights, which, by the way, I'm going to call out Dean right now, because Dean casted for us on Wednesday, and he apparently has not been keeping in tune with what's been happening in the league in terms of like watching the streams, which, life happens, right? Life happens. We understand it. But what you do then is you watch Jacked, right? It's a great hour to hour and a half summary of everything you missed, talking about the latest, not only the score updates, but as well as what's going on in the league. He did not know about the SSBL game of the night presented by Turtle Beach. He was like, I guess you guys just got a comment here or something. Didn't even realize that we were giving out a free Turtle Beach headset. So he now knows and understands it. But all that to say that if you haven't been paying attention to the game of the night presented by Turtle Beach, what are you doing? You're going to have a chance to win a free headset as well as watch the best games that we have in the league. And I have empirical proof of it when we go to Overrated, Underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Which obviously brings us to a blowout of the night.
By Lopside Industries.
Which, prior to our discussions prior to going live with this jacked episode, we talked about this score. It was 18-2. This is now in season 8 the largest deficit in the season. It's a plus 16 win for the Lumberjacks, which just beats the Wildcats 19-4 plus 15 victory on opening day. So right now a plus 16 victory is the largest margin of victory in this season. Lumberjacks just absolutely derailed the Express.
That's a good word. Good word for there.
Which obviously this is where the former, as you mentioned in our notes here, the Metros are now over there and as the Express minors team, formerly the Lumberjacks minors team. They put a hurting to that of the Express.
Yeah, and I want to do a game with you. So don't pull up the stats here.
Yeah.
The score was 18-2. How many hits do you think that the Lumberjacks had?
Lumberjacks probably were pretty efficient. I would say 19.
They had 14 hits.
14. So there's some walks in
and
there.
18 runs. How many walks do you think were issued to the Jacks?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna go and say 8.
11. There were 11. Those were some season 7, season 6 numbers right there in terms of the number of walks. Like I know we talked about how the patch that's been put out before this season really helped in terms of pitching efficiency and brought down the number of walks. I think if anything, this game made us reminisce on knowing that we are in a better patch right now, knowing that we don't have those 11 walk games anymore. I mean, just absolutely dominant. And you really get to see in terms of the expansion sides have a lot to do in terms of development, and it's going to be really exciting to see where they're at in 2 seasons, because I'll tell you what, all those rookies, woo, they got absolutely lit up.
Yep, and it's going to be exciting, like you said, to see where these teams end up in probably season 10. I guess you could say is probably like the best spot for them to really compete. So definitely excited to see how that was an absolute blowout. Which leads us to our next segment. This is about to get pretty hectic here, as we have some trades to kind of talk through. We have on this list 10 total trades. We'll start with the first one. Angels struggling with pitching. They get a pitcher in Dickie Vaughn. The Moonshots get a body in Rainy Getty. Not a great pitcher at all. But they also get the S9 round 2 ball players pick, which for the Moonshots, they now sit with 6. And this is obviously there's a few other trades here that get them to this number. So they have 6 picks currently in season 9 draft.
I'm going to say this now. That way I can get it out of the way and not have to reiterate this, which is I understand why the Angels are doing what they're doing. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with giving up picks. I think that this organization is in a lot worse of a hole than it appears to be. And especially when it comes to pitching, where they have nobody in their minors for pitching. Like what you see on their majors roster, if you look right now, obviously it looks a little bit different. But they do have a season 7-8 pitcher and a season 8 pitcher, but they have 2 season 1s, a season 2, 2 season 4s, and a season 5. Minimum, you're going to need to have 3 new pitchers come into the organization next year. There is no way that those season 1s and those season 2, mind you, we're not even considering the other seasons and their actual pitching levels, which are, by the way, also below Rising levels. But then you look at the number of picks that they have, and they do have 5 picks next season, but this is not a team that needs to be competing right now. This is a team that needs to be holding on to every pick that they have and building up for the future. So that's just I'm not going to reiterate it for the rest of these trades when the Angels are there. I'll more so say from the opposing side. But that's my opinion on these Angels trades is that the Angels are not making postseason. They're not. So there's no point in making these trades, in my opinion, even though they are absolutely fair trades. Dickie Vaughn for a season 2 and a fair trade. But we're not talking about what's fair. We're talking about what's best for the organization, and it's
No.
not. So that's my rant for that.
I agree. But from the Moonshot side, a nice pickup in getting that pick. I think the Moonshots, they're really in for like the full on like rebuild. You know, they got rid of Bojack Goon, they got rid of Bonatello, they got rid of they got rid of so many people. Wreck Dreams as well, Kodiak Destroyer, some of the big time names in the Moonshots organization. They're now gone. They're looking for the rebuild, which with the amount of picks they had season 8 versus now the amount of picks they're going to have in season 9, they're setting themselves up for a nice future at the Moonshots organization. Moving on to the first expansion team trade. We'll talk about this.
For a player.
Yeah,
And
for
I
a
do
player.
want to point out to you that we do have these icons here with people who think who's won which trade. So there's not many votes, but for those of you who don't know, trying out something where for these trades in roster movement, put the icon of the team you think that won the trade, and we'll talk about them on Jack. But anyways, continue.
And then, so we have Tim Grubb is heading to the Unicorns. The Liberty get their own round 1 pick back. That happens a lot, it seems, in the SSBL, getting their picks back. That they've either given away.
I did it.
You did it. We'll get to that at the very end of this segment. Good pickup for for the Unicorns getting an S8 player. Elder is really, really good at what he does in terms of constructing a great farm system to truly build for a competitive majors team. So a good get for them, as well as a good get for the Liberty, getting back their round 1 as they're going to need it, since they are on the defeated side this season. So
Yeah, I still think this is a better trade for the Liberty, especially when you see what happens to Grub literally in 5 trades. But you're basically trading Grub for, if the Liberty end up, they'll have high lotto odds, which obviously with lotto odds you can't necessarily guarantee like a top 5 pick. But I mean that the Unicorns could have very well just traded the number 1 overall pick in the season 9 draft, and that's all I'm gonna say in terms of Tim Grubb, which is that you just got Tim Grubb, a player which is not bad, but you trade that for potentially the number 1 pick or a very high chance of a number 1 through number 5 pick in the next draft, which is I'm hesitant about.
Yeah, no, I agree. Moving on to the third trade, Retrievers receive, it's a Liberty again. Retrievers receive Jillian Blackburn and the Liberty's season 10 third round pick. But in the Liberty receive Stephanie Morgan, Smat Pack, and Steve Sessions.
That's the best pronunciation I've ever heard of Smat Pack.
Smat
You
Pack?
did it really well. You did it really well.
Smat Pack, Steve Sessions. Steve Sessions is a a lifelong retriever, and Stephanie Morgan being there for a very short amount of time, and then Smat Pack being he was an original retriever as well. He started when he was brought up as well. So Liberty receiving
you marked this as a Retrievers win for this trade.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
So I think so. Here's why: is because I do think I was also someone who was going after Jillian Blackburn. I think because she's a season 8, and reminder, season 8 get that extra year of just like kind of nothing. They have a little bit more of longevity starting season 8 and on. So with her being a season 8, that's where it's like, okay, like that's a really good get. They also get a pick in the future. Liberty, they're just trying to fill some spots to get some people in the minors more so. They're not really looking to win necessarily, similar to that of the Mythic. So I do think the Retrievers win getting Jillian Blackburn. I think that's someone who could potentially be like a face of this, like a Woody Walker. I still think Retrievers. I think Woody Walker, and I think that's where I see Jillian Blackburn potentially being that in the future for this Retriever squad.
Yeah, I think the Liberty are able to again put more people into their minors and get them revved up. I do think that they didn't necessarily get enough from it, but I also don't necessarily hate it for them.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's why I think the Retrievers have a slight win. It's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of even for what Liberty are wanting to do versus what the Retrievers got. It's quite even.
And
Overall.
I'm gonna go ahead and do this while you announce the next one.
Yeah. So the Dragons receive Earl Crump, Darius Green the third. So Darius Green the third this offseason now being traded twice, I think, as well as Earl Crump. Mythic receive Dragon season 10 round 3, Gaucho season 10 round 2, Harry Do Something Von Crumb, and Debbie Sawyer. Obviously, Debbie Sawyer, an original Serpent, traded and landed at the Dragons, and Harry Von Crumb, an OG more so, even though he was traded to the Dragons. So he's not an OG season 1 or season 2 Dragon. Von Crumb, I want to say, came from the Knights.
Came from the Knights. Debbie Stewart also came from the Knights. She got traded to the Knights from the Serpents.
Yes.
This one hurt, but it needed to happen. As we did said in the lore, like there's as opposed to like I think the Hanson trade was a little on edge in terms of in like the lore of the world. Like I think Hanson kind of felt blindsided. But as has been discussed in the lore, Hanson has since been able to obviously like Hanson is now on a dominant overdrafts team, so it actually kind of worked out for Hanson
Right.
in that way, as well as for Von Crumb. I think like in the lore talking about being in a role where you get to be a leader. Like if we can just take a step into the world of it and ignore that this is all just ones and zeros, like being able to be a leader on a squad that is so new and fresh, as well as it sucks because we never won a championship with Von Crumb, and to be honest, didn't even make a conference finals with Von Crumb as well. And he was always on the cusp of being traded out. Like I remember, I think you even remember from like season 4. He was it was like the it was just constantly he was on the trading block, always on the trading block, always trying to get sold out. And that's where like do something. That's where it came from because Von Crum had such good stats, as has been talked about in the Discord by Whitney. I always gave him crap that he wasn't S tier. But at the end of the day, it is still really, really sad to see him go. But a necessary trade for us. I didn't necessarily like how much I gave up to get Crump and Green the third, but I because you marked this as a win for me, Dean marked it as a win for the Mythic. We'll see if I regret trading those 2 season 10 picks, but that season 10 round 3 and that Gacha season 10 round 2 are going to be pretty close together. Basically, like early round 3s, late round 2s is going to end up being for those. But able to get Earl Crump and Darius Green the third, which for me this was about getting better assets and taking an opportunity to ship off 2 players that, to be honest, didn't necessarily have a place in the roster.
For someone who also had Darius Green the third, and I think was probably one of the most improved players last season, and he flew under the radar really, from a performance standpoint, Darius Green the third. So that's where I think you really win is you do get that a nice offensive performance from Darius Green the third. You do give away Von Crumb and Debbie Sawyer, which I'll get into in Panic and Chill when we talk about Mythic and kind of where my mind goes, where SSBL has, these weird ways of you send a player one place and they start popping off. So I'll get to that in Panic and Chill when we talk about the Mythic. The next trade is the first trade that started like a spiral and a bunch of question marks, which I will get into each one of these. Obviously, Overdraft receive Buzz Yellow, Skulls of Rock receive.
Whoa! Stingers, Angels.
Wait, Stingers, Angels.
Oh wait,
No, Skulls. We're at number 5. We're at number 5.
somehow that got put at 5, even though
It's
in the
fine.
order it's off. Anyway, sorry,
Fine.
continue.
Anyways,
Yeah.
Skulls of Rock received the Dragons season 9 round 1, and Vern Knight Jr., who is Vern Knight. He's an S7, yeah. Vern Knight
Yeah.
Jr. is an S7. So here's my thought here's my reasoning why, and I said this, just so I don't mess up your face on this.
You said it in our. I can pull up what you put in our league office chat
Yeah.
about it,
So
which is
yeah.
basically that he threw the Bombers game. He was batting 60, gave him plenty of chances. Only 2 home runs in his career, and batting 250 coming into the season. And then for Carol Henry, which we'll talk about later, 3 home runs and a 301 average for her.
Right. And Buzz Yellow coming into and as the stats we have the through the Bombers game he was 1 for 15. Through the game after that, he was 2 for 19. After that, he was 2 for 22. So for me, Buzz Yellow, that was his like, all right, he's gone. Like this just isn't working out. I think he ended up being 4 for 27 with it. So it just even though he is a historic name in terms of his dad Brock, it's not a fit. It doesn't like it for him still being an S6. He'll get a little bit of progression here in the off season. He still has time to expand, like to become a better player, but he didn't live up to what I expected from him. And for me, Vern Knight Jr., I looked at him from a stats perspective. I liked what his stats looked like. He's definitely someone who I can help develop from the Skulls perspective, and obviously getting around one pick is always a good thing in this league. So that's where my mindset with Buzz. Buzz was not doing well. Again, I don't even think I think he's barely batting above 100 now. Will that change when he goes to the overdrafts? Possibly. It's very weird how this game works and how teams get players get traded and they do well in other places, even though RNG just really doesn't make sense in that regard. So we'll move on to what the actual fifth one should have been. Stingers receive Monica Elmenreich, and the Angels receive the Stingers S9 first round pick. Initially, Angels, I think that's a great get that first round pick. Same thing I think this is honestly from a trade perspective quite even. I think the Stingers get someone who they much well need from a bat perspective, and the Angels getting that pick.
Yeah, and these are the trades the Angels need to be making. And again, that's what I'll say with it. I remember talking to Squared about this trade. Here's the thing about this trade, which is that you see Singer season 9 round 1, and you think first round pick. However, that pick could be as early as 13, or that because let's be honest, Stingers are gonna make postseason, in my opinion. That pick could be as early as 13. That pick could be as late as 24. Regardless, it could, depending on how well the Singers do, turn into an early second round pick, which is the discussion I had with Square, which is that the important thing to recognize with a lot of these, especially as we go through here where there's going to be a lot of round ones being shipped, is look at the round one, but don't take it at face value. Like look into, okay, but which teams round one, which is especially when we talk about this next one, which is why I really don't like the trade for the Serpents in the next one, is look at who the team is, or rather, that's basically what I'm saying is like it depends on who the team is because that can really alter positioning because one pick can be anywhere between 1 and 24 in terms of where they fit in. That's a large gap, especially in the beginning where if we're only saying there's like 8 or 9 really good players in a draft, well, if you're picking 15th, you're still getting a good player, but you're not getting an Auntie Jar. You're not getting a I was trying to think of a player and I forgot, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
no, totally.
Slowitz. That's what I was thinking of. You're not getting a Maggie Slowitz, that type of thing.
Which brings us to that trade that you're mentioning. Unicorns then shipped Tim Grubb out after receiving him from the Liberty. They ship him to the Serpents for the Serpents' first round pick in season 10. Obviously, we have no idea where the Serpents will be and from a performance standpoint in season 9. That's such a question mark right now. Do I see them making the postseason in season 9? Yes, I do. I don't see them tanking or see them being a team that's just going to absolutely fall off the face of the earth. So this is going to be one of those picks that, like you said, this is probably a 13 to 24 pick in that draft. So very, very interesting trade here. I don't really know who wins, to be honest.
I can tell you who loses. I think who loses is the Unicorns. between not because of this trade, but because of you gave up the season 9 Liberty round 1 pick for the season 10 Serpents round 1 pick. The only way that makes sense to me is if Elder is anticipating needing more of an influx in season 10 over season 9. And if
Right.
that's the case, then I think that makes sense.
Right.
In any other world, this makes no sense to me
Because
at all.
him getting that pick gives him 3 first-round picks in season 10. He has the ball players round 1 pick. He has the Serpents and he has his own. This could literally be basically 18 to 24. 3 of those picks
Yeah.
from 18 to 24. So unless he just wants to, I think that's from a strategy standpoint, having, you look at the Serpents in round 2 in this past draft, like having all those picks kind of stacked up and rolling against each other, that might be his strategy here. And to be honest, having 3 straight picks in round 1, or hey, he might even trade these off in the off season for you never know with the SSBL. He could be trading
Yeah,
these
the only way this makes sense to me is if he knows that he wants to pick in season 10 and he knows that he wants to keep those. Otherwise, this makes absolutely no sense to get rid of that Liberty round 1, because even in terms of asset value, that Liberty round 1 is worth more than that Serpents season 10 round 1. Like,
right.
I really
There's
fail
got to
to
be
see
there's got to
the
be a
benefit.
greater strategy, I think, that we don't know and Elder does know. So
He can let me know like what it
no,
is.
absolutely.
And listen, Elder has the best, in my opinion, one of the best organizations in the SSBL. Specifically, when you look at, they have 5 picks in season 9, 10 picks, or 6 picks in season 10. Like, they are. I mean, you've got teams that are trying to compete right now that don't even have that kind of like war chest of draft picks. So he is very, very good at what he does. I am curious to see what was going on with this though.
No, absolutely. Which brings us to another one of those Angels trades where it's a question mark to some, but makes a little bit of sense. Skulls of Rock received Lisa Louisville, Bailey Smith, Blair Toblum, Stingers S9 round 1, and the Ball Players season 10 round 2. And the Angels receive Walter Malone. That's how I'm going to say it. Walter Mellon.
Walter Malone, yeah.
Walter Malone, Carol Henry, and Lawrence Longshanks. So a question from me, like I was not going to trade Malone. He was not on my list to trade. I was not going to trade him. But thank you to Aggie for approaching me and saying that this is someone that people want. I offered him to, I think, one other team outside the Angels, and it just nothing worked out. But this one, again, this was me looking at a round 1. How can I get a round 1, which will lead me to the next trade here? This is where I looked through and said, all right, someone wants a first round pick, and I could get someone that's good now that will also progress, and that was the key for me in getting this trade. And Carol Henry, again, I think she's a S5, has 3 home runs, batting .301 in her career prior to this season, and has struggled this season. So for me, getting her out, Lawrence Longshanks, since I put Kevin Manikin at catcher, who has a much better arm overall, it didn't make sense long term to keep Lawrence Longshanks. Even though I don't have a backup anymore at catcher, but I do have some options if I need to throw in a catcher secondary somewhere.
Yeah, and at face value, Lisa Louisville, Bailey Smith, Blair Toblum, these are all oldies that the Angels need to get rid of. Malone, Henry Longshanks are all good additions. This one, again, senior season 9, round 1, ball player season 10, round 2. These are later picks. So that's more of like an early round 2 and an early round 3. I still, I don't know. I still feel off about it, but not as off as I felt about the first, like that Diggy Von trade was the one that I really, really didn't like. But this one I don't hate as much, but I still think they should be doing more of like the Monica Elmenreich trades.
No,
Um,
I definitely agree with you there. But this Stingers S9 round 1 then gets Sean Ferrari'd straight to the moonshots, along with Lisa Louisville for Newt Castle. I had my eye on Newt Castle for since he put him in the trade block, or her in the trade block, excuse me. and I was like, this one, I look at my staff, and at the time prior to this trade, I had 4 of my 8 pitchers were S7s, and I'm like, how can I get more of these S7s? Newt Castle, an S7, a perfect, look at her stats. She's at 99 accuracy already. She's got 73 velocity, 40 junk. To me, this is definitely worth an S9 pick, because my strategy here with all these trades is, do I think I can compete and win a championship right now? No. Do I want to wait? No. So I'm going to get as many S7s as I can, progress, and then move forward. That's where my mind was. I love the draft. I love having picks in the draft, but I'm also about seeing what I can do. If you look at how many, if there's probably a record of how many draft picks have been traded, I probably hold that record. To be honest. So that's my strategy is, do I think I can win now? No. Do I think I can play spoiler this year and mess up with a bunch of teams, in terms of like kicking them out of the playoffs, making it a lot tougher? I do think I can do that, with Newcastle now being moved in at number 4 for the rotation.
Interestingly enough, people think that the Moonshots won this one. Both you and Dean think that the Moonshots won this one, which is your own trade, and you think that you lost. Which, I don't know. That's just really funny to me.
I lost. I don't.
But like that leads us to like the last trade, which so after that trade, that was the 4th straight Skulls trade, and I said in the group, can someone please make a Skulls? Can someone make a trade besides the Skulls? And then you and I got into a room together, and then this happened.
Yeah, Dragons receive their season 9 round 1 and Blair Toblum, and Skulls of Rock receive Fran Welder. To me, I did a little due diligence prior to agreeing to this trade. I looked at some VODs of the minors and how he's doing, how he's doing there. I looked at obviously he's a season 7, third base with an infield, secondary. To me, again, this is another one of those situations where it's like, yes, a round 1 is nice for the future in season 9. However, a season 7 prepares me for at least a couple more seasons to have some of these players progress. And I think that Fran Welder is in a good spot, as well as a lefty bat to throw those also. So definitely someone that I think can be a nice asset to this.
I probably could have milked a little bit more from you as well from it, but so Dean saying that you won, you said that I won the trade, which again, this is the second straight trade.
The reason why I said that you won is because I truly think this was an equal trade. I don't see a winner. I don't see a loser of this trade. You get your pick back. Will you make the playoffs? We don't know. If you don't make the playoffs,
most likely, but if I don't,
you hold on to your own destiny with that, with having your pick back. So I think that's where you win. For me, obviously, I get the S7. You basically almost like a utility infielder at this point, that I can put wherever. And I want to say I have Fran starting at second, as well. Been Botley moving to first, and Rec Dreams hitting the bench for the game on Super Saturday.
Yeah, and the last thing to sort of close this up is, so I shipped off the round 1. When I got back the round 1, basically I traded I got Wanda Cosmo and Blair Toblum, which is, an off piece, which Libby Sickley left, Dina Gregory left, Fran Welder left. So if we say that Blair Toblum is basically like a Libby Sickley and that not really worth it, anything. Dina Gregory worth a little bit something when I did trade her, but not really that much. It was basically Wanda Cosmo for Fran Welder was that trade, which is very interesting to think about in terms of the optics of it. And I'm not sure if that's. I think that's a win for me, but we'll see if I've finally been able to learn how to trade.
Yeah. Which that's the end of the trade. Again, there you go. There's your Skulls reasoning is, do I think I can win this season? No. Do I think I can possibly compete next season? Yes. And that's what I want to do. I'm not long game. I don't have the patience for the long game. why I have I have like I think one total pick between the next 2 drafts, and I just got it in one of the drafts. So that's the end of the trades, the trade recaps. Trade deadline isn't until week 8, so we still have some time to go over some crazy trades. I might make another one, who knows. We'll go ahead and go into overrated, underrated, which brings us to you and your Dragon retirees. Sponge Cooper, a season 2, part of the first draft of the SSBL, drafted by the Dragons. So basically, if I'm not mistaken, he is the first player drafted by a team to stay his entire tenure. Actually, no, he was
No
drafted by
way.
he was drafted. No, he was not drafted by the Dragons. He was drafted by the Unicorns. I say that
But he didn't play a single game for the
he
Unicorns.
played like 1 or 2. He was immediately traded because Mitch, who created Sponge Cooper, was the Dragons manager. He wanted him, so Sponge Cooper was drafted by the Unicorns, traded. So I was wrong, but has been there his entire season, his entire career outside those 2 games. So every season he's been in the SSBL, he's been part of that Dragon squad. So along with
Hannah
Bradley,
Bradley.
Hannah Bradley, obviously an original Angel, been around the block a little bit. She's been to, I think, the Wrong Fielders,
And then to me. So
then
just those 3, but
staying season 1 inaugurals basically. Staying with the Angels, Wrong Fielders, as well as the Dragons. So overrated, underrated. Honestly, these retirees, I think it's well deserved. Hannah Bradley was one of the best pitchers at the time, at her peak. One of the best pitchers. When you faced Hannah Bradley when she was on the Angels, it was like, I think we're gonna lose it. I
unbelievable.
think we're gonna lose this. This game might be just a loss. I might as well just hold that L. Sponge Cooper, man. Sponge Cooper was quite the second baseman. He had quite the glove at second. Offensively, he was hit or miss. He's kind of like, I would almost say like a Joey Gallo. He's either going to strike out or he's going to hit a homer. That's all Sponge Cooper ever really did. You're looking at it from a production standpoint. So I think it's underrated. I think these 2 players, are going out, with a great organization, known as, they'll be forever known as Dragons. Underrated are these retirees.
And this is underrated for more of a personal reason for me, which is that when I took over, and like this was like in the press release that came out about it, which is that they first of all, Sponge Cooper and Hannah Bradley together? Question mark. But the second thing is that like what Sponge said, like in his time, like in the season 2, season 3, season 4. Dragons didn't trade, and that was literally like if one of our first messages that you and I had together was that like, hey, do you want to join the Dragons? Do you want to join the Walkers? Which is crazy to think about. That those are my 2 choices to choose, and it's such a huge rivalry, like one of the most historic rivalries. But I ended up choosing the Dragons, and your whole thing was like, just so you know, the Dragons don't really trade. Like that's their thing. Is like they kind of stay together. And one of the first things that Mitch told me when I was managing was, "Don't trade Cooper because he's me." And so this is me honoring his vision by keeping Cooper there the entire tenure that he was there, as well as with Bradley retiring as well. Like Bradley was probably one of the first blockbuster, I think the first blockbuster trade I made in order to get like a big arm in. And so they kind of represent the start of 2 different eras, and both of them retiring. And once Cooper is gone, this entire team is mine now. And is no longer have any of what Mitch has had. And it's been interesting because of how old the Dragons were. I think people forget how old that team was when I took it over. But it's that's why it's underrated, is what it really like encapsulates in terms of
Which we
the
look at Sponge Cooper's stats over his career. He had 82 hits, 14 home runs, 43 runs batted in. He walked 41 times, struck out 26, and had a 277 batting average. So not the greatest, as I mentioned, but he definitely was one that definitely had an impact on that roster for you guys there. Which then we pull up Hannah Bradley real quick. Hannah Bradley all-time stats: 110 innings pitched, gave up 102 hits, 39 earned runs, 29 walks, 60 strikeouts, 17 home runs, and ended her career with a 3.19 ERA and a 1.19 WHIP. So
Those
again,
those will probably go up if she ends up getting called in this year. I'm gonna go and say because they're still playing the end of this year. Sponge Cooper is very much a bench bat. Hannah Bradley is very much a closing pitcher, so that she doesn't pitch many innings.
right.
But
But to to have 17 home runs, she's a season one. She's a season one. 17 home runs given up. That's not that many.
no,
For a now going on eighth season here in the SSBL. So props to both of those players on a phenomenal career. I wish them the best of luck in their endeavors. Brings us to our next one, scheduling. This is one that you put on here, and you have a crazy formula. I'm gonna let you go ahead and get into this to break it down. Overrated, underrated, the scheduling. Go for it.
I'm gonna go with underrated. So I did a lot of math here. So first of all, we started week 2. We did let's do the game of the night, the third night, and let's have like a blowout game, which became known as the blowout game of the night, presented by Lopside Industries, as the game of the night presented by Turtle Beach. And let's have like a blowout game as the fourth game, a game of the night as the third game, because most people will tune in for the third game. So let's get the most eyes for the best matchup, not the best teams, but what we think is the best matchup and has the best ramifications. So the SSBL average since week 2, the average margin of runs is around 4.31 runs. If you throw out 11 blowouts, that's 2.08 runs is the average margin of those games. Keep that in mind. For the game of the night presented by Turtle Beach, there have been 12 unique teams in 9 matchups, 7 of those epic, 2 heroic, which we need to work on. Ball players been featured 3 times. High rollers, serpents, unicorns, wildcats featured 2 times. The average margin for those games, so the average margin total is 4.31. The average for those is 3.11. So an entire run plus difference between the average and the game of the night, which should indicate closer games. There's only been one blowout game. And if you take out that blowout game, which was Serpents at Sparrows, which was optimistic at best in hindsight in terms of making that one the game of the night, the average is just 2 runs as the margin of error, that's ridiculous to think about. Then for the blowout game of the night, there's been 12 unique teams and 9 matchups, which if there are 7 epic, 2 heroic for the game of the night, there's actually 2 epic, 7 heroic for that one. The Express have been featured 3 times. Liberty, Lumberjacks, Retrievers featured 2 times. Walkers featured 2 times. Here's the crazy thing, is that the better team in these matchups are 9-0. So for who we have indicated is the blowout, it's been that way. Again, the average margin in the SSBL is 4.3 runs. The average margin here is 4.33. Interestingly enough, though, even though the better team has won, is undefeated, even though the average margin is about the same as the SSBL average, if you throw out 2 of the blowouts, the average is actually less than both the average and the game of the night average. It's 1.71 runs. So it's underrated in that we've scheduled this accordingly in terms of we want the game of the night to be the closest games, which they are, which is with few blowouts, which they have. And then for the blowout game of the night, it's underrated in that the better team is undefeated and the average margin is there. However, if you throw out the 2 blowouts, the margin is actually a lot closer. However, the better team is still winning. But I just thought that was some really, really interesting stats to look at in terms of the way that we're scheduling it. And as this is very dynamic, I thought that was really cool to think about.
No, absolutely. I definitely think it's underrated because these 2 specifics, the game of the night, the blowout of the night, these are 2 things that are brand new here in the SSBL this season. Obviously, we've always had like our game of the night. It's always been game 4. It's like the highlight game, but we never called it anything. So to have the game of the night presented by Turtle Beach, as well as having the blowout game of the night presented by Lopside Industry, I think this is definitely an underrated situation with how the scheduling works. And I'm excited to see when we'll talk about our games of the night for this upcoming week. Once we get to our week ahead. But first, we got to go into the best segment Panic and chill. Ooh, these obviously we're cutting down the topics due to having the trade recaps portion in this, so we could have talked about a lot more of panic, a
Yeah.
lot more of chilling. But we have two topics that I want to talk about. We have the wrong fielders losing two, and we have the mythic. We'll start with the wrong fielders losing two in a row. Are we panicking or are we chill? Sack with the wrong fielders now losing. Right.
I'll tell you what we're feeling. We're feeling really good that they started out 4-0 because, listen, I have said I don't think the wrong fielders are bad. I think the wrong fielders are good. I don't think they're as good as everyone thinks that they are. And they won against the Liberty. That's a game they must win. They only won by 1 run against the Dragons. They only won by 1 run against the Walkers. Huge, huge 3-1 win over the Lumberjacks with their number 4 as well. So that one was definitely a huge win for them. However, lost to the Dragons, lost to the Vikings. I'm still chilling actually because their next 4 games are Knights, Angels, Retrievers, Express. So I think we're chilling just because of what they have coming up, and especially like as this is going live, they could very well be 6-2. However, after that, you've got Wildcats, Walkers, Gauchos, Moonshots, Overdrafts.
Which is
that
why
is
I'm panicking. This is why I'm panicking, because these next 4 are so crucial. I'm panicking because of how crucial these next games are. The Angels, let's see. This is, to be honest, this might be the tail of the tape here, depending on where the Angels are in their overall. Let's see. It looks like they're going to be at only their 4th game of the season, right?
interesting to
Yeah.
think about that.
Angels
But
are
again,
only at
like
their 4th game of the season. Um, is Walter Malone going to make an appearance? He will be able to. He's
he's in as a relief right now.
will he get put up as a starter? That's something to consider. Who knows? But the wrong fielders, I'm panicking. You lose 2 in a row. These next 4, the pressure is now at an all-time high. As we say here in the SSBL, we are panicking at an all-time high. The wrong fielders, it's about to be really gross these next few weeks. It could be great, but it could be really gross. So I'm panicking if I'm the wrong fielders. Which brings me to the next one, and this is a very interesting topic, and I kind of gave you my explanation in our notes here. And this is the Mythic. Mythic, they get their first win as an organization. Phenomenal accomplishment. However, will it continue? Will there be momentum after this win? Will the tanking spoil? They pick up Von Crum. Again, when I was saying this earlier, there's this weird thing in Super Mega Baseball where if you, for whatever reason, swap one player to another team that's performing poorly on one team, they do crazy on another. Gina Muscles is a very good example of that. Gina Muscles was one of the worst pitchers on the Bombers, sent to the Stingers, and was one of the best pitchers in the league. That is an absolute insane thing to think about. Will Von Crum come out and just like put up bombs after bomb after bomb for this Mythic squad? Who knows? But I think if I'm the Mythic, I'm panicking a little bit because it's only, even though it's just 1 win, if you look at that bottom half below the panic line, it's not that far from being in that playoff picture. If you look at it, you have the high rollers.
You're crazy. You are absolutely
High rollers
crazy.
are 2 and 3. High rollers are 2 and 3. They're sitting at number 7. Mythic are just under them at number 8. Look at it. It is facts. It is facts. It is.
You are out of your mind. This is crazy. This is the first time we're only in episode 4. But this is the first time we're in panic and chill. You're full panicking, and I'm full chilling. I am full chilling here, and the reason being is the same that I posted in the Discord, which is that, listen, the difference between finishing 24th in the league, finishing 23rd, 22nd, 21st is a 16 weighted points. And those are higher rated once I redo the rule book here in terms of how much weight each one of those has. Like, the lottery has always been a shot in the dark. But to be honest, the difference between finishing 24th and 21st isn't that much. And in the past, I don't think we've ever had the team with the highest lotto picks actually getting the number one overall. If anything, the new way the league is structured, where half the teams don't make it, it really de-incentivizes tanking hardcore. Just because, and that's like the whole point of the lottery is to de-incentivize tanking hardcore. Um, I'm chilling. I honestly am chilling. I think that cool. They get Debbie Sawyer and Harry Von Crum. Guess what? Harry Von Crum has got a decent bat. He better not be playing first base because he has horrendous fielding stats right now. I can even and pull them up as I'm speaking. Let's see. Is he still on my team? No, I already shipped him over and updated the sheet. Von Crum has 50 speed, 50 fielding, 9 arm, which you're saying he's a first baseman. Sure, but 9 arm matters a whole lot at first base, more than you would think. Not like a ton, but matters more than you would actually think in terms of getting plays done. And in talking to these teams, their whole goal is to not lose by a ton. They don't want a ton of negative progression, but they still want to lose. I'm not that worried. I'm really not that worried. And this is a hallmark occasion because for the first time in Jacked, you're full panicking, I'm full chilling.
But the reason why, like, outside, like, I'm panicking because of where they're at in the Epic, because the Epic is a battle.
No,
Look at the schedule. Look at where they're at. They play the Angels twice. They play the Express next. They play the Liberty. The Mythic are the best of these expansion teams. Those should be easy.
What?
Mythic?
No, they're not. No, now we're really getting into pardon the interruption. This is the first time where I legitimately am upset at something you've said. First of all, Mythic are not the best of the expansion teams, and I'm pretty sure Shaq would like to have some words for you about that as well. Second of all, again, like the Angels have gotten better. I think you're really underestimating how bad the pitching is. The pitching is atrocious.
It's atrocious. No, I do agree.
You're out of your mind if you think that the Mythic are the best expansion side. I'm calling you out on that right now. This is the firest Jack that we've had, and that Jack in general is gonna be.
I am totally fine with that. That's what we need. Get the viewership up. Let's get this the number one viewed Jacked of all time. I think that even though it is very early on in the season, I think they'll beat the Express. The Express are just, I don't think they're good enough. The Angels are the Angels. That's if the Mythic versus the Angels is a battle of two horrible pitching staffs, I still think the Mythic are going to beat the Angels. That's 2 games. So now we're at 4 total wins, where this high roller.
You're not going to get any more.
Yeah, that. It's the SSBL. Anything
I say this because you said you tempted the word postseason, and I'm immediately shutting that down. You and the Skulls have a better chance of making postseason than the Mythic, and I will stand by that.
So that is true. We do have a better chance. However, this might get a little scary for the Mythic because it's RNG, because it's AI versus AI, you may want them to do one thing, but something else will happen. Look at the Wildcats in their 1-13 season. They were the best team, one of the best teams from an overall perspective, and they went 1-13. Anything can happen in the SSBL. Anything can happen. I don't know what you're typing, but I'm just saying, I'm panicking.
I'm getting viewership for tomorrow. I just said y'all better tune into Jack tomorrow because I just heard the worst take of my life.
I'm just saying. You disagree. That's totally fine. I think this is.
I like it though. I like having the banter.
I'm just saying. I'm looking at this pitching staff and it's not great at all. But
thank you.
If you think of Gina Muscles, she was barely. I don't even think she got over 40 accuracy. Obviously, we're in a different game. We're in a different patch. Even though these are all low accuracy, sometimes that's what ends up being like a really good pitcher in this league. It's very crazy. You weren't here early on when Gino Muscles had the craziest season of all time. Trust me.
Listen here,
Trust
old man.
me.
That was a completely different
Trust me.
SSBL too.
It is, but I'm panicking because of where they're currently at. It's 1-2. Things are gonna get crazy with the Mythic. I'm just saying. Just saying.
Let's just go to the week ahead, man.
I'm gonna leave it
No,
with
I
you.
think
I'm
know
gonna leave
what
it
you
with
just
you.
did there. You know what you just did, Josh. You guaranteed that Jacked is gonna be a watch thing because if one of us has one of those takes every single week, man, people are gonna tune in.
People need to tune in because I am all for having that hot take at the Mythic being the best. We have Lucian Miles. He had 2 home runs with 11 contact.
You need to move
Just
on,
saying.
Josh. You need to move
Just
on
saying. We're gonna move
before
on.
you.
We will move on, and we'll talk about the Mythic in the second game. Okay.
Okay.
So week ahead. Day 1, the Serpents travel to El Vijo for the overdrafts. Overdrafts, 5-1 coming off of that loss. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think they play on Super Saturday, dude.
Serpents do play tomorrow, or no? Actually no. The overdrafts do play tomorrow, or they
Yes, they
do
play the
while this is
Express.
happening. So it's gonna be
So
the 4 actually.
assuming that they had won, they'd be 6-1 heading into this contest. The Serpents do not play, so that makes the Serpents 3-1 heading into this contest. This is probably the first true, outside of the High Rollers, probably the first true battle for the Serpents. This will tell us where the Serpents really lie. There also is a big game for the Phenoms as a whole, as that division. If the Serpents end up losing to the Overdrafts, that puts them at 3-2. Bombers, let's see. The Bombers have a couple of games up there. They play the Stingers. If the Bombers could be by the end of this day at the top of their division if the Serpents lose. Bombers
Yeah,
could beat the Stingers, and they should beat the Moonshots on the same day in the blowout game of the night presented by Lapside Industries on day 1.
and we'll talk about this in terms of like, to be honest with everybody, we had a really hard time, except for day 2, choosing the game of the nights presented by Turtle Beach. And the other one here that I do want to briefly mention is Ball Players Lumberjacks. That's a huge game between those two teams as well. But yeah, I mean, especially with the most games played in the Phenoms right now is 6 by the Sparrows, who aren't really even in the conversation. You got the High Rollers at 5. Like, this Phenoms, we still do not know a lot about. Whereas for the overdrafts, like, this is a game to rebound off of, because anticipating that they'll beat the Express to continue to have that run, because they are very much still in the conversation to try and get that number 1 seed, even though, I mean, it seems like it's too early to say to fight for the number 1 seed, but after these 2 games, they will be halfway through their season.
Right.
And entering that at 7-1 is very different from entering it at 6-2 in terms of where the Gauchos are, and especially we know how the Lumberjacks can get streaky as well.
Yep. No, absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and predict this. I do think the overdrafts are gonna pull it off. I think it's gonna be, it could potentially be a walk off. I'm not gonna go ahead and call it a homer, but I think we're gonna have a walk off. It might even be a bottom of the 8th miracle kind of deal. I think it's gonna be a late surge by the overdrafts to either come back from a couple of runs, or they might even just hold on with the lead the entire game. I do think this is going to be a close one, but I'm going to say overdrafts take it.
I'm gonna go Serpents handedly here. It's the Serpents number 1 versus the Overdrafts number 4. I think that's just gonna be a huge disparity in terms of the starting pitching. The Overdrafts can try and break through in the end, but I don't think that the Overdrafts bullpen is as good as the Serpents bullpen.
No, that's fair. That's a fair point. But Serpents, again, this is probably a bigger game for the Serpents than it is for the overdrafts.
Yeah, oh, without a doubt, without a doubt.
So we move on to our day 2, and this is probably my favorite one, and not because of the rant, but this is because this is the first time we're truly getting to highlight at such a peak level in the stream the expansion teams. And it's not an expansion team versus an old team, it's expansion versus expansion. This is going to be a really good game. I do think the Mythic will take it. I don't think the Express will. I just think the Mythic are a better team.
Have you not watched any Express games? The
Yes, I
Express
have.
could easily have
They
had
could
3
have.
wins.
Yes, they could
Season.
have. But I do think the Mythic are a better team.
Okay, I'm not gonna battle on this. What I will say is that we were kind of reaching for that Serpent Sparrows as game of the night presented by Turtle Beach, just because we wanted to bring some eyeballs to the expansion sides. This is much more of a natural fit in with
Yeah.
Express and Mythic, which, regardless of opinions of which team is better, the point of the matter is that these are two teams that are going to be really well evenly matched, and I think the Express get their first ever win. I don't think they're going to beat the Overdraft, and I think finally the Express of all the teams, I think the Express may be even the best team, the best expansion team, either them or the Liberty. I think the Express have just had a really hard luck season so far. They could have had more wins, and I think they get their win against the Mythic here.
No, absolutely. I definitely think it could happen, but I'm a Mythic. I'm a Mythic fan. I'm a fan.
We
Hardcore.
gotta at some point we gotta create a shirt where it's just like something about like you may call me crazy, but I'm a Mythic fan or something like that,
Yep,
where it's
I'm
just
fine with
like
that.
the hopium is so strong and it's all from you. It's not like Shy doesn't want you to root for them to
No, he
win
doesn't. He
either.
wants to lose, and I've seen that in his messages. Chat. Week 5, day 3. This was another one where it was tough to try to decide which of 2 games could be the game of the night. We chose Walker's Dragons. This one, I think you and I talked about this prior to the podcast. I think you handle the Walkers pretty easily in this one. Obviously, this is probably one of the most historic rivalries out in the SSB outside of the Bombers and Serpents. So I definitely think that this is going to be a good game, but I do think you probably win by 4 or 5. It might be maybe close in the very beginning, but you'll get rolling probably in the 3rd or 4th inning and run away with it.
And we did initially have Serpent Stingers in this slot, I think, but decided to shy away from it just because the sheer number of games that have been had by the Epic Conference, as well as the sheer number that have been done by the Serpents and the Ball players already have like had their time. And again, like the game of the night is also about like what's the most meaningful, what has like the biggest storylines with it, and Dragons Walkers. The reason why Dragons Walkers and like Serpents Bombers are so special is because of the off the game antics where you have Dean versus Whitney for Bomber Serpents, and for Walker's Dragons back in the day, back when it was Zach Sass and Mitch that were running these two teams. That's where I feel like it was the most natural, just from what I understand about the league, because I didn't come in until season 4, the most natural rivalry that has emerged, and why it's one of the most historic is precisely because of those origins. And things have been flamed in the past as well, and I think especially with the number of former Dragons on the Walkers as well, it's the notion that the Walkers are their Dragons retiring home, especially with where those two organizations are at right now. It'll be cool to see. I do feel bad about it because in the Dragons Gauchos is, as of right now, scheduled as the game of the night for week 6, day 1. We'll see what happens. Obviously, the High Rollers Wildcats might be able to take that spot instead. But it's always good to see the rivalries. And the thing about rivalries is you never know what's going to happen. And especially like the Dragons are trying to resurge here. This will be after a Cyclones game that could very well be a loss. And this is the Dragons 4 that's going to be facing off against the Walkers number 3. So who knows? I think it's going to be a lot more competitive than people think.
Yeah, no, I definitely could see that. Which, before we sign off of episode 4, we want to congratulate Running for winning this week's Turtle Beach headset, for participating and being a part of Game of the Night, SSBL Game of the Night, presented by Turtle Beach, our 3rd game every single stream. So congrats to Running on winning this week's headset. Shoot me a DM on Discord and I'll get you situated with that headset. So thanks as always, guys, for tuning in. This might be the most watched episode. We'll see. We'll see how things go. My name is Jaywood alongside Fisac. We'll see you guys next week for more SSBL action.
Keep on rigging, everybody.